Hello YouTubers, this is Music Horror here once again in my top 50 albums of all time, and this one is number 36. Yes, you may love it, it could be a way of life. Pink Floyd's The Wall, released 1979. Now before I get into this album, I would like to discuss the history of this album because I think there's a lot of people out there that when they review the album, they review it as a whole, or they talk about it, they do not talk about the history going into this. Maybe because I think for a lot of Pink Floyd fans, it's a very sore subject. But let's go into the history of the making of The Wall, which is something that's not talked about. By 1978, the end of the Animals tour, Pink Floyd was done. They were pretty much broke up as a band. Everyone sort of went their separate ways. David Gilmour went and did his debut album, which I thought was very good. David Gilmour, self-titled. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. Reminds me a lot of songs that could have been on Animals that just didn't get on there, and that's maybe why I did it. Rick Wright, I believe, recorded Wet Dreams. I'm not sure about that. If you know, if I'm wrong, just comment down below. Say I'm wrong. I'm not sure. And Roger Waters was going to go do a solo album, which turned into The Wall with Pink Floyd, Bob Ezrin's, yeah. But also another thing that does not get mentioned at all, I've seen reviews of this, and I've seen it in documentaries, I've seen it talked about in interviews and all that, like really going back, but nobody mentions, by 1970 or 8 or 9, at least when they started this record, Pink Floyd was broke. Now, how they were broke, there's a lot of, it always depends. It's sort of like anything you read, you have to sort of filter through some of the shit to actually believe it, but the stories out there is bad investments by Pink Floyd, or what happened to a lot of bands back in the day. The person in charge of their savings either embezzled the funds or just flat out ran off with the funds, and that's what happened. All this plausible, all could have happened, I'm not sure, I wasn't there, but yeah, so the track listing for The Wall is In the Flesh, ? The Thin Ice, Another Brick in the Wall Part 1, Happiest Days of Our Lives, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, Mother, Empty Spaces, Young Lust, One of My Turns, Don't Leave Me Now, Another Brick in the Wall Part 3, and Goodbye Cruel World. Disc 2 is Hey You, Is There Anybody Out There, Nobody's Home, Vera, Bring the Boys Back Home, Comfortably Numb, The Show Must Go On, In the Flesh, Run Like Hell, Waiting for the Worms, Stop the Trial, and Outside the Wall. Now, signature song off this album, hands down, without a doubt, Comfortably Numb. Best song off the album. Hands down. Great way to end the David Gilmour, Roger Waters partnership. And they got in shouting matches over what solo was going to be in the song, because I think Roger originally just wanted one solo in it, and they ended up breaking up into the 2 solos that you heard on there, which I thought was a great way to end the partnership. And also, the 1980 concert of this really helped with this song, because I always get that everlasting image of seeing it on YouTube of David Gilmour on top of the wall playing that solo for Comfortably Numb is one of the highlights. Now, hidden gem off this album could be Empty Space, or Young Lust is one. Run Like Hell, which are the only 2 other than Comfortably Numb to have a David Gilmour credit by it, and one of 4 songs that was not written by Roger Waters entirely. So, is what it is. But hidden gem off here, you could even say Hey You was a hidden gem. Nobody's Home, which is a great piano piece. I love that song. But for this one, I'll also throw in a shit list like I did with Use Your Illusions, because as much good on this album, and you can say, there was also some really bad songs on this album. Like, I don't mean really terrible. I think it's all people's just opinion on what you think about certain types of music. And this one, I just thought there was a lot of shit on it. Disc 1 actually only has one song that really I thought never belonged on this album, and it's Don't Leave Me Now. It was just a song that I'm like, that was kind of... You could have taken that out, or even... Here's a couple songs that didn't make the album. What Shall We Do Now? And When the Tigers Broke Free. Which I thought, after seeing some of the songs on this album, it would have really been better to have those songs on this album, because it would have opened it up a lot more. Like, What Shall We Do Now? In the movie, which I'll get to after this, really should have been on this album. It would have helped out a lot. On disc 2, I always thought Vera and Bring the Boys Back Home Stop, which I thought was just utterly pointless. It was like a 30-second filler prelude to a song that I just thought, why not just add it to one of the songs and just have it there. Waiting for the Worms was a song that I liked David Gilmour's voice in it, his vocals, but I just didn't care for the fucking song. I felt like, okay, this is pointless. Like, I'm repeating myself. It's like once he got into that really radical racial type stuff, I really didn't care a lot for it. It just drug on too long, and yeah. Now, what were my thoughts when listening to this album? It comes to the point where there's some good stuff on it, but it comes to the point where the bad shit almost makes you want to turn off the album as a whole. Just even before it gets to Comfortably Numb, it's like that dull from Hey You to Comfortably Numb. Other than Nobody's Home, there's like, Is There Anybody Out There? Vera, Bring the Boys Back Home, which was like, okay, this just doesn't fit musically. It just doesn't make sense to me why it's on here. But now, another thing I forgot to mention was the movie that came from this album, and I think that's what affected it a lot lyrically, is that Roger Waters wanted to get his lyrical thoughts out there quite a lot, and that's where a bunch of this came from. There were some great songs on here, like I said, but it's just pretty much a blah. After a while, it's just like, really, that's the best you could have came up with, but it was rushed. They did the movie. It did make Pink Floyd a shitload of money and all that. I'll give it to them that way. Is this Landmark album? Yes, this is the last of the great Pink Floyd. It really is. Up until the Division Bell in 94, I really think this was one of the last great albums Pink Floyd put out. The next album, I didn't mind. I know a lot of people shit on it. I actually did not mind the final cut. So, yeah, so this is Music's Horror here. Once again, my thoughts and opinions on my top 50 albums of all time. Number 36. Yes, you love it. Pink Floyd's The Wall. Be sure to comment down below, like, subscribe. And if you have an album you think should be in my top 50s list that I haven't mentioned yet, be sure to comment down below. I'll give it a listen to if I haven't heard it and all that. But no, this is Music's Horror here once again. Peace.